Good morning, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another live edition of Wealth Building Wednesday, brought to you by TRHT Selma. TRHT Selma is a partnership between the Black Belt Community Foundation and the Selma Center for Nonviolence. We come together to form an awesome organization and initiative called TRHT Selma. For more information, you can log on to TRHT selma.org. That is trhtselma.org. We are funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and it is through their generosity that we are able to bring you this broadcast and many other programs in the Selma Dallas County community. Wealth Building Wednesday is an initiative that we really are pushing hard to make sure that we close this thing called the wealth gap in our country. And as a part of what we do, the information that we share, and right now the series that we're offering to everyone, which started last week with Selma's very own mayor, who got his start in business as an entrepreneur. We are following up. We are talking about all things small business and what entrepreneurs need to know in order to have a successful run at it, right? We've heard of this thing called the Great Resignation. And we want to make sure that if this is an option for you, if you intend to explore entrepreneurship or small business ownership, that we are able to supply you with tips and information to help you be successful. So this morning, I am joined by a very special guest who happens to be my partner in doing great things. We get into good trouble all the time. Mr. Daron Harris, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Lydia, today? I hope doing well.
Yes, doing great. Listen, this is without coffee. We were just having a conversation before we logged on about coffee, and both of us are avid coffee drinkers. But yeah, this is without coffee that we have this excitement, and I'm always excited about Wednesdays because wealth building is so important, especially when it comes to leveling the playing field for families, and particularly families of color. So it is an amazing opportunity for us to get together because we serve as co-directors of TRHT Selma.
Yeah, shout out to the TRHT family, Selma Center for Nonviolence team, BBCF family, our design teams, law separation economy, and everybody in the community over the last 5 years now that have really pitched in and bought into what we're doing with the messaging and rolled up their sleeves to get out there and actually do it and bring it to the public in a meaningful way. So couldn't be more happy to be in that group of family. And shout out to our friends over on the radio station listening to us today. I think BFC Radio always supporting this program. We love you guys. Love the program last week with the mayor. Big fan of the mayor and what change he's brought to Selma. And
great to be part of this just program. A year.
Right.
Yeah.
So happy to, we touched on this conversation a few weeks back or last year rather. And so looking forward to this opportunity to drill down into a little bit more, get into some areas that people were not able to join us last time, or we weren't, able to cover some things that they were more interested in last time.
Absolutely. So what Daron is talking about is our opportunity to share what he does professionally, and I think both of us do this pretty well. Is focusing on this thing. Well, a lot of folks refer to just as marketing, but actually there are several different categories of work product: public relations, branding, and marketing. Now, today's show we are going to specifically hone in on branding. Because we want to make sure that folks are attaching themselves or aligning with consultants that are going to actually meet their needs. So if you walk into someone's office who say they specialize in marketing, but they're actually a graphic designer, that's not the same thing, right? So we want to make sure that as we build our businesses, and specifically with this show, build our brands as small business owners, that we are able to align ourselves with the services that we actually are looking for and need. So as you mentioned, we've had a similar conversation before, but I want to just kind of quickly revisit. I mentioned 3 areas that folks oftentimes intertwine and kind of get all convoluted, but let's kind of break it down for folks and let's revisit the difference between marketing and branding. So is there a difference between marketing and branding?
Yeah, absolutely. They both have a relationship with one another, and it's important to understand where that intersection is to be able to have the balance that you need. But they're two distinctly different things. Marketing, marketing is a science. Marketing is a regimen. It's a management function that it identifies human needs, um, wants. It identifies products and services to satisfy those needs, and it facilitates transactions that deliver those products and services in exchange for something of value to the service provider. It also specifically targets those that have the needs. In the case of business, those people are referred to as customers. So there's an identification process and a transactional nature. Sales is heavily involved in this term as well. Brand and branding is a component. So imagine if you were a perfume, what would your flavor be, right? That's a simplistic way to look at it, but a brand itself is a product, a service, or even a concept that is publicly distinguished from the whole spectrum of everything else going on in the world and the universe and for sale at the marketplace, on the shelves as you go into the store. So branding is the process of distinguishing that service, product, or concept that you've created or that you're offering and sticking out from the noise, standing out from the rest. Why do you want to stand out? You want to stand out so that people that have a need for what you're offering or identify with it can more easily connect with you and not have to waste a lot of time trying to find you in the weeds. So your job is to get out in front of the crowd and make the connections that you need to make to have healthy transactions and have a healthy business.
And so now this is important, right? Because as a
Mm-hmm.
small business, we all want to stand out, right? We want to go from being like Walmart started as a small business. It
Right.
started in Bentonville, Arkansas as a
Mm-hmm.
general store and has now become a multinational corporation that has
Mm-hmm.
spun off all sorts of stuff like Sam's Club, and I think has even purchased Dollar General. So
Yeah.
so it just keeps growing, right? Now, for all of us as small business owners, that's not necessarily the goal, but we do, like you said, want to stand out. So when
Mm-hmm.
we walk down the bread aisle or walk down the water aisle, why would someone gravitate to Aquafina or Dasani versus Sam's Choice,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that brand, okay, is what we want to focus on today. But the difference, I also want to kind of go revisit the difference between branding and public relations. So
Mm-hmm.
you gave us info on branding, like what. So now, what is public relations? What is that?
Yeah, public relations is a beautiful thing. It's what I do every day of my life, and I want to emphasize that the terms public and relations are not just window dressing. They both substantially indicate the heart of the matter about what this term means. Relationships is key to this. I'll start with a definition that we use in the Public Relations Society of America, and that's a professional guild that I'm a member of. I'm a due paying member, and I show up at meetings, and we all discuss these things on a regular basis to always try to be better and help each other and network. And as things evolve, as practices evolve, we try to stay in step. Technology has had a tremendous influence. Pandemic has had a tremendous influence on how things are done now, a little differently, and in some cases vastly differently. But let me give you the definition that we use at the Public Relations Society of America. So public relations is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. Okay, so let's think about what I just said off the definition for you. It's a strategic communication process. So you're having to be careful with how you're getting information, exchanging information that builds mutually beneficial relationships. What's a big part of relationships? Listening and conversing, and honesty and truthfulness. Those are key to relationships, right? and
Absolutely.
organizations and their between organizations and their publics. Now, organizations can be a nonprofit, it could be a major corporation, it could be the White House administration, or it could be your business. Your mom and pop business on Main Street America, and your public could be your customers. So those broad terms within the definition can be specifically applied to many areas in real life as you interact with the public. Now, you asked also, how does public relations differentiate from brand and branding, right? So PR at its core is mostly about interactivity and relationships and dialogues and listening and conversations as it is anything else. So from a branding standpoint, branding is more about the moves that you make intentionally yourself, with your corporation, with your business, to identify a message about yourself that you want out there and to be consistent with it and have it distinguished from your competition. So public relations is a tool for you in your application of your branding.
And so when we think about these things and how they can impact our businesses, how can bad public relations or bad brand management um, cause a business to be ruined? Or can it?
Uh, yes, it certainly can. Some people that may not understand public relations might think that it sounds kind of like a fun or glamorous or um, type thing, just a lot of words being thrown around haphazardly. That couldn't be further. That is bad public relations.
Right.
But for good public relations, back to the definition, you need to be very intentional and very strategic and very relationship oriented in the way you apply it. Bad public relations can erode trust very quickly and damage your reputation horribly, especially if you're a new business and you're just starting with getting your product out and your branding and your logos and your product packaging is all set and you've got a great product. Your sales are just starting to come up and you've got enough money to have a few radio ads and newspaper ads out and some billboards maybe in the community and online advertisement on Facebook. Everything's looking good for you, but let's say you start sending out false information and you've got misinformation going out about the pricing on your goods, or you advertise a sale that doesn't really come through or happen at the last minute, or you can't deliver your products on time to the location where you're advertising a pop-up market for that weekend. Those would be bad moves, and the word will get out about you not being consistent and truthful, and then people will associate dishonesty with your product or whatever branding that you have out there. And now in social media, nobody lives in a vacuum. It's out there immediately. The damage is done, and then you're in damage control mode when you might want to be in the garage mixing up the next batch of perfume, right? And you don't have time for that at an early stage. So you want to be very careful, but the main thing is be honest, be truthful, and be consistent. And these are principles that grandma and grandpa taught us when we were growing up, but they couldn't be more central to the core of what good PR is, and how it builds your image, your trust factor with your customers and your audience.
So now, from a professional's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I want to just kind of revisit something you just said around we don't live in a vacuum.
Right.
Social media is like on it. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
it smells bad in the restaurant and it's like 10:52, then by 10:57, like 1,000 people could know, right?
Right.
So want to just quickly ask about the impact of social media,
Mm-hmm.
right? And customers, I know that there's a perspective that we should have as customers, and you would hope that folks would have enough respect to address the business owner or someone who could actually help make a difference. But
Mm-hmm.
how should businesses respond when customers may have a poor interaction, whether it's customer service, quality of product, like you said, shipping, can't get it out on time? How should businesses best respond when there's something negative, say, in the atmosphere?
Yeah, you've raised a really great question, and uh, it's a potential Russian roulette situation for any business owner. You could have, and I've seen it happen on Yelp reviews or customer reviews, Google reviews, where you have sometimes you have a situation where clearly you have someone that has a beef with a business that may be related to a personal relationship, like
Right.
an ex-fiance or a family member that had, or a competitive business that just wants to do you harm, and send somebody into your place of business and fabricate something entirely outlandish, puts it online. It may or may not have any basis in truth with your service. That's one thing, okay?
Okay. Okay.
But you're speaking about a situation where somebody's come in and ordered, let's say, some food at your restaurant. They had a pretty bad experience with the taste or the quality or maybe the service that was offered, and then they went home and got on Facebook or Instagram and put a photo up and a nasty comment about, this is the most horrible restaurant experience I've ever had. And so the damage is then done.
Mm-hmm.
Their friends are picking that up. Other friends, other customers of the restaurant might see that, and it just kind of spirals. So how do you get involved in that process as a business representative and do something meaningful? I recommend trying to deal with the heart of the comments. If it's a food quality issue or a customer service issue, those are two different things. Maybe try to get directly in touch with the parties involved and address it from the standpoint of, could I offer a refund? Did you make your issues known on site when you had the issue?
Right.
If not, why did you choose not to do that? Could you come back in? Could we offer you another, give us another shot? If we had a rude waiter or waitress or somebody that was working for us, somebody that our employee, that's another issue. We would then tell you that we're addressing that with the person involved. And it's probably important to be transparent and honest with your comments at some point, visible in your comment fields, assuming that these conversations are going on in a comment fashion on your page or their page. Try to put something out so the public can see that you're making an honest, straightforward effort to make things right. I tell people, crazy will reveal itself rather quickly if it's actually crazy. And so if the person has no vested interest in really being concerned about a service or a wrong that they feel, and they're going to escalate it and add on a level of vitriol or negativity beyond when you've tried to make an honest effort, most people will be able to see that right away.
Right.
And smell a rotten fish, in the room. And that is probably going to work out to your benefit. Now, if these comments or negative interactions are getting to the point where it's a distraction and it's like on your page, your business page, social media, you have the right to hide those kind of comments. You have the right to delete, and you also have a right to block particular users or report them to the service provider. They can be reported to Instagram or Facebook or whatever the social media services that you might use by means of community standards.
Right.
And let me tell you, community standards are getting a lot stricter.
They are.
Since the Trump era,
Mm-hmm.
since all of the congressional hearings where you've had like the heads of Twitter and Facebook on a regular basis testifying in front of Congress, right. Those organizations have really tightened up, and you cannot be as flippant with and irresponsible with just throwing stuff out there anymore before you run the risk of getting your account in trouble by making those kind of comments, potentially false information, if that's what the person is entering into. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble. So when you come online and make a charged comment with a service provider, be sure you're being truthful. Otherwise, you run the risk of being put in the penalty box for an indefinite period of time.
So that's great information. I am so glad that you talked about the various ways that we can talk to and work through situations where negative reviews and negative social media interaction may come into play. I personally think it's important for us also to encourage business owners to not to attempt to retaliate, right?
Correct.
Because a negative interaction on social media could actually cost you more in the long run than a bad review.
Right. There's no need to fight fire with fire, as it is. That is just going to deteriorate. And as a business owner, you want to be seen as responsible, professional, and offering a quality of interaction that reflects the quality of services that you offer on site at your business. And always be respectful in communications. People will see who is not being respectful in a two-way conversation rather quickly. It's all right there in writing.
Right.
There's a record. There's a transcript. So there's no need to really make it more complicated than that. And like you said, don't throw oil on the fire. Just address the problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now, what about some of the things that we can do as small business owners to make sure that we are effectively branding ourselves in general, whether it's social media, outreach to other businesses that we could partner with? Like, what are some things that we can do to position our brands to step forward, right, and separate ourselves from the other folks in that genre of business?
Yeah, I'd say definitely be be cognizant of the position that you're in, whom you're trying to connect with as your audience, what state of readiness you're in as an organization, how many tasks can you take on at any given time that are above and beyond just making the widgets and going and opening the store and selling every day. You may be an online store, so you don't have that kind of overhead or 9 to 5 issues like you do with a brick and mortar. So make an assessment of what position your army is in before you march into the field, for one thing. So you don't overextend your resources as you get into your marketing activities, and your branding activities. Also, I would say prioritize first. Definitely think of branding as a priority sooner than later, and investing in your marketing structure and your personal branding when the time is right. But sooner than later, make it a priority, because you don't want to keep pushing it off indefinitely and figuring it out later when you've got a little bit of momentum going for yourself. So, for example, I would say the most important thing with branding is to be consistent. Be intentional with your messaging. Try to choose messaging that connects with your market that you've identified for yourself, your potential pool of customers, and then stay consistent with it. Don't change it around every other week, and then erode what you're trying to do. And don't try to throw too many different things all out at once. Focus on what's working, the one or two or three things that are working well. Focus on them and build that momentum before expanding. And don't dilute yourself, because initially you're going to have probably just you and one or two other people, as a small business, a small team, and you can't overextend the time and energy that you have to promote your product. When you do have enough resources, think about getting a qualified consultant on your team sooner than later. It's well worth the investment. It helps somebody have a job and honors their work in this world, and we all need to be in a village helping each other. So don't try to go it alone on everything, because you may very well get overextended, and you probably will, when you could pay somebody less or the same amount of money that you would just maybe waste on your own to do it right, and to do it in a way that takes it off your shoulders, and you're still able to direct and approve and craft and create with that other person on your team, but they're actually the doer, and they're taking the legwork out of the equation for you, and freeing you up for the sales and being the face of the business, and being there in the store every day if you need to be, and
So
dealing with
now,
customer service complaints. Yeah.
exactly right. So I want to ask you a question when it comes to the perfect, because you emphasized this the last time we
Hmm.
spoke in 2021, and I just really want us to kind of hone in as we get towards the end of this segment. Lord, the time just flies when we're sharing
Right.
sensitive information. But wanted to inquire about professionals. Like, is it possible for us to hire one person who does all of this stuff, or should we look to hire a team of people who are individually credentialed and experienced in the areas of branding, marketing, graphic design,
Mm.
public relations?
Well, that's a very key question. Either way is a possibility of working. Now you have to remember, the more people you bring on that are in charge of separate areas that might
Mhm.
be very closely related, the more phone calls during your day, the more emails, the more meetings you have just proliferated for your calendar, and the more time management questions become something for you to have to deal with every day. So that's one concern. If you can find a very good a consultant who has a number of skills in one wheelhouse and can show you examples of previous client work that they've done effectively, so that you know there's some proof in the pudding. You're not just kind of going out on a wing and a prayer with somebody, but maybe somebody that's done similar work with your competitors, or a similar product or business such as what you were doing in the past and has done it well. It would behoove you to look at success stories and then associate yourself with those that have a proven track record. But typically, with a good boutique independent practitioner in marketing, they're going to have numerous skills under their wheelhouses, probably social media, probably graphic design, because that's part and parcel with everything we do online is digital, and that's immediately translatable to print and packaging and product as well. And those who work smart work with killing many birds with one stone. They have to stop and replicate a process on branding design, times 1,000 for one product. You're not going to have time to do that. So that gets back into consistency of branding. When you do have someone that is orchestrating a few different areas in sync with each other and doing it quite well, that helps you with your consistency, because you have more of a consistent voice as opposed to so many cooks in the kitchen. So things to think about. As your budget increases, you may have the capacity to have the luxury of an individual specialist for each area.
Okay.
But I think initially you need to look at somebody that offers a diverse and wide-ranging set of skills underneath within one house. That would be my recommendation.
And so I really want to help folks understand that although we're talking about um,
So I'm having a lag on video and audio. I don't know if you're hearing that.
yes, okay, because I'm like, wait, he's still talking. Okay.
But I'm not
When
actually moving or talking, but my video looks like it's frozen.
okay,
So I'm trying to
so
turn
I
it
do
off, maybe, so we could
okay, so
read.
maybe let's see.
Good old internet.
I know, right? But I do want us to continue to kind of just dialogue, because one of you mentioned several things in your last commentary, and just wanted to kind of pinpoint when we're considering bringing on these professionals who you said can oftentimes have a number of skills in their wheelhouse. So they may be great at graphic
Mm-hmm.
design as well as marketing, or graphic design and branding, or public relations, or all of the above. I am hoping that he's able to log back in, and that we'll see him and he'll be able to respond. But I do want to encourage everyone who is watching or listening, because we will rebroadcast this episode on WBFZ Z105.3 at 1:30 Central Standard Time today. Want to encourage you, whether you are a small business owner and you are in it for profit, or have a nonprofit organization. Understand that marketing, please know that marketing, branding, public relations, graphic design, all of these things are very important tools that we can use to make sure that our businesses, because a nonprofit, just because it says nonprofit, does not mean that it's not a business. It is very much still a business. So we want to make sure that people are investing, that we're being intentional, that we're being consistent. And yes, and Daron is back. So I wanted to, I was just addressing and helping folks to hone in on the fact that branding, marketing, public relations, graphic design, these are all important elements for not just for-profit businesses,
Mm-hmm.
but for nonprofits as well. Because just because it says nonprofit doesn't mean that you're not supposed to operate like a business. But I wanted to specifically, and I know we just have a few seconds left, if you could just kind of let us know, if when we're seeking out the assistance of professionals in those areas, is it fair for us to maybe ask for clients like contact information, so that we can know what experiences these folks, prior clients or current clients, are having with them, like response time and things
Oh
like that,
yeah,
because it matters.
more than fair. It's just like when you're going to apply for a job and you have some references that you submit along with your resume. Anybody worth their salt are going to be proud to share with you their success stories and their association with certain clients or a family of clients. It's their track record. Chances are it's probably already alluded to on their website or social media already. So that's something you can easily vet without even having to ask them. You have the right to pick up the phone and call anybody in the world or send them an email that you want with an honest question. So that's one way to approach it. But just by asking somebody that you're considering getting into a relationship with as a service provider, just ask them. They will probably give you at least 2 or 3 folks and examples that they're more than welcome for you to touch base with and show you a particular project as examples of what they have been working on where they had some traction and some success. But most of the time that information is already out there. In the case of organizations, and you mentioned nonprofits, you can probably just go out to a website and pull up a press release from any organization in the world that's issued it. And on that very press release will be the name of the person who wrote it and who was hired by that organization. So you've got some immediate information and cross-checking that you can do with numbers and contact information to provide further follow-up in your investigational processes. You want to protect yourself. You want to make sure you're making a wise decision with your limited budget, especially at an early stage as a small business.
Absolutely. Such sage advice. This is an opportunity Wealth Building Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we broadcast live at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time on Facebook and YouTube. So look for us. Black Belt Community Foundation and the Selma Center for Nonviolence are working together to become TRHT Selma. So you can check us out on trhtselma.org. The work that you see is a product of the two people who are literally featured. Because both of us have some level of specialization. Like Daron does this full time. I do program management full time. So we come together to make an awesome team. And the organizations that are connected, the Black Belt Community Foundation and the Selma Center for Nonviolence, such vital parts of our community coming together to do great work. But the sage advice, right, of doing your research, right? You just said it, Daron. Do your research. Pick through websites, find out who these folks have worked with, right? If you're going to spend some hard earned, maybe using money from your 9 to 5 to transition to a small business and make your dream come true, if you've earned that money, you've also earned the right to make sure that you're investing it in a person or a business that is going to be able to help your business grow, right? So we're excited that you all have tuned in. Please take the time to like and share this video, set your reminders, because again, we broadcast every Wednesday live on Facebook and YouTube, 10 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time, and we rebroadcast the audio of every single broadcast through our media partner, WBFZ 105.3 at 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you so much, Daron, for being here.
Oh, it's an honor and a pleasure, and I hope we connected with some folks out there today. If you tuned in, thank you for listening to us and the respect you've shown to the information that we're offering, not only from us but from TRHT as an entity that's trying to help this community.
Absolutely. So until next Wednesday, y'all better get out here and start building that wealth.
And we got some great news coming up for everybody, so stay tuned to these channels. We can't tell you what it is yet. But
Absolutely.
It's coming.
Yes, good news is coming.
Bye-bye.